My name is Amir. I'm from Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. Let's review the concept of break-even point using an example of running a short course. We can divide all the cost of running a course into fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed cost can be something like rent, what we pay to the lecturer or speaker of that course, and it remains fixed regardless of number of students. But for the variable cost, let's assume that we need to provide the booklet, and basically it's a variable cost given that if we have no enrollment, we don't need to buy any, and depending on the number of students, is going up in the same direction as the number of students is going to change. Therefore, if I want to calculate the total cost, I can simply add these two costs together. And as you can see, this red line can represent the total cost line. Now, similarly, I can just estimate the amount of revenue or just draw the line for revenue by considering a fee. Now, if I just draw revenue line, is going to be this green line. It starts from 0. If we have no enrollment, we cannot have any fees. Of course, we don't have any revenue, and then it goes up in the same direction or proportion of changes in number of students. Now, let's just go and see that how we can calculate break-even point. Basically, break-even point is where these two are equal. Total revenue is covering all the costs that we have, or total cost. Or we can say the difference between total revenue and total cost is going to be 0. If I'm just going back to the same graph of total cost line and basically revenue line, total revenue line, we can see that where they cross each other, and that point is going to be our break-even point. Basically, that's a point that our total cost is going to be equal to our total revenue. Of course, at any level of enrollment, less than break-even point, we are going to make loss. And for any number of enrollments above this break-even point, we are going to make profit. Let's see an example where the fixed cost is $1,000, cost per student $100, let's say the booklet, and $150 is the fee. Now let's see that how we can find break-even point graphically. Basically, if we have the fixed cost line, simply it's going to remain fixed regardless of number of students. Then we need to just draw the line for variable costs. We just need to have two data points. We can try 5 and 30 students and just find the points and then simply connect them. And the total cost can be calculated similarly by considering two data points, or we can simply draw a line parallel to the variable cost, which starts from this point, which is our fixed cost. And then we have total revenue line, and we know that definitely this starts from origin. When we have no enrollment, this revenue is 0, and we just need to have one more data point and connect 0 to that, and then simply we can have total revenue line. And as you can see, where these two lines are going to cross is going to be our break-even point, which in this example is 20 students. Means that if we have 20 students enrolled in this course, then it covers all the costs, but we are not making any profit. In addition to break-even point, also we have an important concept called break-even in sales dollars. Basically, it's the revenue that should be generated to cover all the costs. And graphically, as you can see, it's easy to determine that number. Another important concept is safety margin, which is the difference between budgeted sales in dollars or units and break-even sales in revenue or in units. Basically, we want to know that, let's go with an example of having 30 students or making $4,500 revenue. Safety margin says that if, for example, the enrollment drops by how much, still we are going to be safe against making any loss. In this example is 10. Similarly, we can do the same in terms of revenue and see that the difference between the revenue for 30 students versus the revenue for 20 students, as you can see, is $1,500. Basically, that's the safety margin, which means that if the revenue is going to drop by 1,500, still we are going to be safe against making any loss. In terms of the formulas, you know that we can use algebra to simply identify how we should calculate break-even point. I'll just quickly show you here that if we just consider B as break-even point, we can easily calculate break-even point as the fixed cost divided by variable cost per unit minus selling cost per unit. And let's just call this S minus V as unit contribution margin. Therefore, we can say this is F divided by unit contribution margin. Also, graphically, you can see this is B, and we call it break-even in units. And if you want to calculate break-even in sales dollars, then you see it's going to be in y-axis. And similarly, in terms of calculations, if you have B, you multiply it by S, or alternatively, we can see this side of equation and saying that F divided by what we call it contribution margin ratio, which is unit contribution margin divided by selling price per unit. And basically, this is going to be an alternative formula. And we can say that these are the main formulas that we need to calculate break-even point and break-even in sales dollars. Basically, here you can see the list of all formulas that we need. On top of analyzing break-even point, what's important is also to know the number of units that we need to produce and sell to be able to make a target amount of profit. Again, using algebra, you see that only difference is we have the difference between total revenue and total cost equal to profit before tax that we intend to make. Then if we calculate this U, which is target sales volume, is going to be profit before tax plus fixed cost divided by S minus V, which is our contribution margin per unit. But just consider that this is profit before tax, and if profit after tax is given, we simply convert it to profit before tax using this formula first. In practice, we usually have more than one product. Therefore, that's important to be able to calculate break-even point for when we have more than one product. Basically, the formula is going to change from unit contribution margin here to weighted average unit contribution margin. And this weight is based on sales mix, which is showing the proportion of products that we produce. Thank you for your time and hope that this short video has been helpful in terms of reviewing the concept of break-even point.